So when you have a chance, let yourself get nice and comfortable, resting in a stable way, wherever it is that works for you. Softening into your posture, whether you're sitting on a chair or like I am, a little beanbag cushion, zafu. You want the weight to rest in front of the sitting bones. So it would be easy for me in this position to collapse back here. Actually, usually prefer to sit. This is Melanie's. I prefer to sit flat or on something harder because it, for me, supports me better. Something that encourages me to slouch and fall backward becomes a bit difficult. A cotton or fabric zafu or meditation cushion would probably be way too soft for me to feel supported. And so instead, I usually have a folded woolen blanket that I sit on, or I sit on a lightly wrapped piece of wood, something like that, that gives me enough cushion so that it's not uncomfortable to sit on. But if I want to be lifted up enough, depending on the shape of the surface I'm on, that's more likely what I'm comfortable to sit on. You should feel support. That's why we were so careful with selecting from the different stools we were trying out, because we wanted to find something that was, for our postural shapes, something that was supportive enough to hold us, especially at the edge of the stool or the chair that we tend to sit at. You don't usually want to sit all the way back in a seat because it tends to force your legs up and your knees up above the level of your hips. And so for most chair shapes, you want to scoot yourself forward toward the edge of the chair so that your weight can rest in front of those bones. Allow your hips to be free. And then your legs simply extend out in front of the chair, feet resting on the ground. Allowing yourself to soften through as best you can. Sitting on exercise balls can be a bit difficult. Of course, it depends on what's going on with your body, and a big portion of what you're trying to do is be comfortable. I sat for some time on inflatable meditation cushions, and some of the difficulty is, again, in my body shape, because everyone's body is shaped so differently, is that it was round. And the high point of the sphere that I would be making contact with actually pressed up into my perineum, which I don't mean to be TMI about it, but this is an area that you want to feel free. You want the tip of the tailbone to be relatively free. So there isn't any pressure in the spine. You don't want any pressure pushing into the lower back as best you can. So as I sit here, I have to usually shape this kind of cushion so that it's not pressing into my tailbone, forcing my back to round. And also it's not making too much direct pressure against my perineum. And that was right at the time that my perineum started to move with the breath. And this is a common thing. We slowly open the breath. I talked about it a little bit in one of our earlier sessions. But one of the areas that begins to move, usually after your lower back opens, is your perineal space. And it begins to inflate and move with your breath. And it was happening so strongly that from the outside, people would see me during each inhalation. My body would pop up because the pressure from my perineum would be like somebody pushing into my inflatable meditation cushion, and it would lift my body up, change my posture for a moment. and then I would exhale and it would set me back down. And so in general, my guess is that for most people's body types, because I'm such an average gentleman, that it might create odd pressures in the body and make it difficult for you to relax because there isn't a space where it's trying to support you. And anytime that you start to place support in those areas, the nature of the exercise ball or the inflatable cushion is that it gives in those areas and fills in support elsewhere. So it pushes back in the places where you're trying to not have weight because it's trying to even out the pressure across your bone. And so that is my thought about it. I hope that's helpful. I do think that it's very important to find a comfortable place to sit. And especially in the beginning, and especially if your body's going through something like pregnancy or certain kinds of illness, you just want to find a comfortable place to be. And if you can find a comfortable spot on an exercise ball or an inflatable cushion or a bean bag or something like that, a waterbed, that's not optimal for developing internal qualities, certain kinds of internal strength that are asking you to leave certain areas free and other areas that are supposed to have the pressure moving through it. But I think at certain stages of our practice, comfort is more important. And just finding a way to be so that you can relax as best you can, so that your mind has the chance to slow down, your breath has the chance to even out a bit. And then just recognize that after that quality, if this is a transitional period, because of course we have all different kinds of body types in this world, if your body is able to return to a more comfortable, normal way of sitting, perhaps after a pregnancy or after a big injury has healed, then maybe it's best to get something that has a little bit more solidity so it can support you just in these areas. And it's not pressuring directly on the tip of your tailbone or elsewhere in your body. That's my thought about it. And it's able to allow your legs to dangle a little bit and be free so that there's just these single points of contact that are allowing your system to release upward. Welcome, Del. Glad you made it. So I apologize for chatting so long. Let's spend just a few more minutes softening and breathing. Each time you exhale, you release down through your body. And in the context of this discussion about finding the appropriate lines of support in your body, as you exhale, see if you can release through to this point in front of the sitting bone. And if you line up your body and line up this movement of relaxation through your body, there's a way that you can, using your intention, kind of aim the direction that you're relaxing through. And as you aim that release, let it fall through the body to these particular points. And see if you can feel how that creates this gentle return wave of softening and lengthening upward. letting everything fall through. And in the context of what we'll be talking about today, we'll be reviewing again more of the gallbladder channel, this wood energy in the body. And its quality is that which releases, that which lets things flow through. And of course, that's especially relevant to the work that we do here. But especially for today, emphasize awareness of letting go of the lateral side of the body from the head to the feet. These sides that travel along the side. And if we focus as we release the head on the temples, around the ears, sides of the neck, tops of the shoulders, these processes, this will also help us get in tune more with this gallbladder channel that we're working on. So I will take my headset off in a moment. And first, as usual, I want to welcome people who are just finding us on the internet. I'm not quite sure what we're doing. Please do click down below the video for a link that will lead you to an introductory lesson and will help you understand this form a little bit better. Then as you join us in these live sessions, you'll know what's going on. We're having a wonderful spring rain going on today, less windy than it was yesterday. It got crazy last night. Trees were snapping, and it was kind of a wild evening. And now it's calm, and we have a very thin roof here in the little meditation cabin, and so it's just a lovely sound. Poor Melanie walked by, looked in the window, saw that I was in class, and then ran away, so I was trying to message her that she could come back and join us. She's so polite. So these points that we often focus on back here on the back of the neck, those are part of this gallbladder channel that we work on, as well as this point here on the top of the shoulder that we'll be spending a moment on. And so we want to emphasize this freeing of the sides of the body. The crown of the head floats up in part because we release all of this tension, this tendency to grip and pull. Instead, we let everything float up. And if you push your head up, you're actually getting in the way because of this same system. We have to let go and learn how that letting go allows us to be free. Just like with our seating. One of the methods I hope that people have the chance to learn from this 100 days is that if we relax in the right way through our body, and we're able to let go and let go, even just a little bit, and the weight rests in the right location, this letting go, this sinking down actually begins to release something that supports us. The more we soften down, the more we become free upward. And again, this is one of the very first times that most people experience what we talk about as this internal strength, this quality of qi that develops during practice. It sounds very strange. How does being lifted up happen because we're letting go down? But it's a very clear experience, and we want to find it as quickly as we can so that sitting becomes effortless. But you have to find your way through the middle to this point in order to allow it to happen, and to put up enough time in order to develop it, of course. Softening the shoulders. Letting everything go through. Being easy. By softening the front of the shoulder, for instance, this allows us to release this tendency to rip our shoulder forward and to not allow it to rest in this nest, this shoulder's nest position. And the more we are able to soften in the front, the easier it becomes for us to let our shoulder fall into the appropriate position. And that helps us release this point on the top of the shoulder. Gallbladder 21. This is the shoulder well. We want to begin to find this quality of release and softness, length. And the further we follow that particular path, it leads us in this direction of Taoism and internal cultivation. Because you can take those skills of letting go really far. But first we have to begin to find them in the smallest ways. Oh, I let go of my mind. My mind becomes quiet and my intellect is sharpened, my memory gets better, all of these wonderful qualities. I let go of my emotions and let myself become peaceful, and suddenly my world gets better. And it's all these qualities of becoming easy and finding out how that can benefit your life. The Taoist way. And it's interesting, Dale in the comments makes a funny point about how these various methods that come from these traditional practices, the realm that I know, of course, is traditional Chinese practices, and they're finding their way into our modernized world, modernized medicine and other methods. And it's as though they're being discovered for the first time. And just in my relatively short lifetime here of studying medicine, because I got to start quite young, I've watched so many things that we're sure about in the realm of medicine get turned on its head, which is actually a positive statement about the nature of science, because a good scientist and a good practitioner of medicine should be able to change their mind and be able to go, oh, actually, this works this way. And that's one of the reasons it can continue to grow so quickly and it can continue to change, because in its best culture, it has the culture of a willingness to look at evidence and see how things change. And I think that's just wonderful. And just recently, I watched a discussion about a man who he had lost both of his arms, and somebody donated their arms, and they were attached to this man's arms, his nubs, and they are working functional arms. And that blows my mind. I remember when somebody had their hand cut off and a new hand sewed on. And I hope that's not gross to anybody in particular, but that's a miracle. That's amazing. And I am in awe of what we are beginning to be able to do, because there's no time in history that wouldn't have been just a fantastic miracle to have experienced. And that's becoming more the norm, which is just mind-blowing. And at the same time, just since I've been going to school and learning these things, I've gotten to see how hygiene, for instance, hygiene has been something talked about and taught about in traditional Chinese medicine for a long time. And they discuss these invisible entities that are in this part of the water. That's why you have to cook the water or gather the water from the center of the river, or all of these various qualities, invisible things. The spirit of the water wasn't healthy until you changed it. And eventually our modern world catches on, and suddenly we have hygiene, and they say, oh, maybe we should be sterilizing our tools before cutting into people, and oh, we wear a mask. Traditional Chinese medicine, certain kinds of illnesses come through the nose and the mouth, so they would wear masks a long time ago. And we finally catch on. It takes a while. And this goes on and on. And of course, Chinese medicine would say, but you can take that kind of thing too far. And that's what happened. It hit our Western world, and I personally was raised in a very sterile environment. And so I became sick because I was not exposed enough to things to challenge my immune system to allow it to grow. And that, again, is this misunderstanding of what people are learning. You can become too sterile, too protected. It becomes bad for you. And I remember going to school, and I was fascinated in studying exercise physiology with an instructor. And in my book, it talked about how exercise has no known benefits for mental emotional health. That's mostly a myth. And then, of course, now it's a standard of care. We all know that, of course, proper exercise is wonderfully beneficial for the health. And of course, this is being taught about for thousands of years in traditional Chinese medicine, and develops into practices like Qigong and Tai Chi. And yesterday, Mel and I were chatting, and we were just this giant list of these kinds of things. Meditation. Suddenly now everyone's excited about the power of meditation. Who knew that meditation was so good for you? Let's do a study. Diet. Oh my gosh. You mean diet can impact how we feel and how our mind and our emotions develop, and on and on and on. And very slowly these things get adopted. And I appreciate that we're in a system that can change enough to begin to accept these things when there's evidence. Because of course there's also a lot of useless traditional practices as well. And at the same time, the benefit and the power of these methods is very well known. And it is really lovely that we can all get together and share these methods. And so we're talking about the fascia. This particular set's been around for a very long time, before the word fascia. And in Chinese, they talk about the white tissue and the membrane that's just in here. And we're releasing all of this, and it's very important, and it's a big part of our Taiji practice and Qigong healing and the flow of the channels. And it's just in the last several years that Western anatomy and physiology as a whole discovers the interstitium. Oh, who knew this was here? It's amazing. Science. So you didn't know that by practicing these traditional methods, you're actually on the cutting edge. I had to make a prediction, which we were talking about yesterday. I would predict that the next big thing that will become common knowledge, it might take 20 years, but pretty soon it'll be obvious that these things work, is that where you place your mind, not just what's in your mind, but where you place your mind in your body will make a really big difference, which of course is well known in traditional Chinese medicine and Daoist practices. And it's starting to be understood. A number of you know that I was in a study where they put lasers on my fingers and were noticing how I was able to control the circulation in my hands. And just by using my mind. And so as this becomes more and more well known, of course, that has direct application toward various kinds of healing, even in the more obvious functions of post-surgery or these kinds of things. And so as you practice these things and you gain skill with them, take note that you're probably learning something that very soon will be very exciting for people. And maybe you want to share it with any people in your life that need it, or any doctors in your life that will want to know about it. Continuing to soften and to breathe, to let go, to allow your body just to fall open. And remember this theme for the class of how you fall, how you release matters. Where you release matters. Release through your tissues. As you sit, completely let go, but let go through your body into the spot where we're sitting, and feel how that manages to help hold you up. As you release your neck, release it in such a way that your head begins to fall upward, rather than collapsing just on one side. Again, as a reminder, as you practice this, as I'm mentioning, it matters where you place your awareness in your body. The quality of your awareness, of course, how hard you push it, the emotional content, these kinds of qualities are there, the intention that goes with it. But simply placing your awareness in a location in your body makes a difference. And so as you practice, allowing your awareness to soak into this layer that we're working on has an impact, has a direct impact on this quality of the body, allows us to begin to access it in a different way. Taking your time, letting yourself appreciate how different your body feels as you practice, and that allows your nervous system to change. Softening and letting go. Find this space inside you. Learn how to stop gripping with your mind. We have to learn how to let go. Pressing with your fingertips, your thumb, base of your thumb, your palm, heel of your hand. As you learn to let go, find which technique and which pattern is helping you today soften the best. I don't know why it changes, it just seems to. You want to follow that release. As your hands move from the back to the front, along this line below the ribs, let your hands move a little bit further back, perhaps, than they were before. There's a gallbladder point back here, just past your midline, not too far, along the base line of the ribs here, softening toward the center, just letting your arms fall. If I soften my shoulders, my hands just naturally sink and fall around the line. The liver and the gallbladder are the color of wood in this system. And so I'm wearing green today, although this yellow seems to make this look black, but it's actually green. And as you release again, reaching all the way to the side, softening the side of the body all the way along here, but also the space just below the line of the breast tissue, or the pectoralis, depending on how your body is shaped. There's another point here next to the liver point that we were talking about yesterday, just in front here, on the ribs themselves. That's also related to the liver channel. So as you soften all the way from the back to the front, you let your fingers remain relaxed, your palm emanating in gentle warmth. You find this way of feeling friendly and comforting and gentle. You don't have to push too hard, especially if you tend to have gallbladder and liver constraint tendencies. This quality of tending to want to overdo everything, to push too hard, to try too hard, to grip, to control, to force. That's that tendency. And so it might be especially difficult for you to try to just be gentle, just to let yourself be simple and calm and easy. But that, of course, makes it especially important for you to find how to allow and be friendly and casual. And we're just letting our awareness soak into that space beneath the skin. In this case, also a little bit between the ribs. Not too far. There are other practices that adjust and change the bones and the joints, and they move the sinews in a certain way, and they really work with the muscles in a certain way, or they just work with the skin. We have practices for all of these, and each one requires a different kind of interaction. And right now we're working with this membrane layer, this fascial layer that surrounds and wraps and goes through us. And it requires this gentle release, this opening. The more we add force to it, the stronger it holds. And it's stronger than we are, at least than our intention and our musculature is. So please be kind and gentle. Change the angle here. There are methods and ways to force the fascial layers to open because they tend to get folded up and thickened as ways to protect old damaged areas, or kind of like calluses on the inside of the body. It's trying to protect us. But when we add force to those areas, all it does is reinforce the pattern that this area needs to be protected because there's a lot of force going into it. And so it cycles on and on. We have to find a bit different and a better way. I remember watching a video where it was somebody discussing an accident that had happened, where they were trying to force layers of fascia to release. I think it was from the top of somebody's hip bone attaching to the ribs, and they were trying to force the fascia to the release, but the fascia is stronger than the bone, and so the bone tore instead of the fascia. And then they had to deal with that. So please do try to avoid fighting the fascia and instead coax it open. Be warm and gentle and soft, consistent, asking it to open, asking it to open, asking things to release and to spread, like ironing the shirt. You're not trying to tear it open, you're trying to smooth it out. So as your hand travels forward and back along the sides here, this is another area that the gallbladder tends to come up into the body. It comes up the sides of the legs, comes around the pelvis shape here, and up and along the body. And so as you relieve pressure along the sides of the body, you turn your waist a little bit. That helps to engage it. By taking the pressure out of the hips and sitting correctly, that also takes some pressure out of the gallbladder channel. Being easy takes the most pressure out of it. Glad you made it, Chris. You didn't get our notes about the time changing in the United States? Yeah, I'm waiting for a flood of people to come in now and be confused. So just as a review, the gallbladder channel that we work with most of the time on the legs is along the outside seam of the pants, so to speak, along the sides of the body, center of the glutes. That's mostly where we tend to work with it. And then it tends to come up, through and around, comes up along here, zigzags a little bit, up through here, up into the shoulder. It comes up the back of the neck, comes along the temples, the ears, these kinds of qualities. And so it goes all the way up. And we mostly work with it by softening along the sides of the body and through this internal quality of letting go. So as I increase the number here, I can continue to soften the tops of my shoulders so they don't become too tired. That's another way that we help to relieve the pressure in the gallbladder channel. Continuing to soften. Always taking a break when you need to. Please be gentle. Don't add tension to your body. Don't start gripping. Warming the tailbone. Allowing a sense of release. Remember that, just like we were talking about in the beginning of class, you want to sit in a way that there is no pressure on your tailbone. If you're sitting on your tailbone, that means you're sitting on your lower back. We want to sit on the backs of our legs, not our lower back. So this point here in the center of the glute, if you were to look at yourself in the mirror and stand on one leg and kind of clench your glutes a little bit, they seem to hollow out a bit. They make a circle. They're following the shape of the pelvis. And in the center of that circle, more or less, that is where the point is. 1/3 of the distance from this bone that you feel sticking out on the sides of your legs, the greater trochanter, 1/3 of the distance in the direction of the tip of the tailbone. That's for most people where you find it. A really wonderful point to learn to release. You can do it through this kind of touch or massage or various methods, acupuncture. But for our purposes, we also want to learn to release it as we sit or as we stand, that we're not constantly gripping all of the time. We tend to grip and hold ourselves along the sides of our body. So part of our practice is letting our awareness soak into our body enough so that we can feel that we're gripping for no reason, and we learn to let it go. So if right now my shoulders are gripping and I'm just sitting here, I have no reason to be gripping. We could all agree with that. And then as I feel into my shoulders, I notice that that's uncomfortable. Usually it takes a little while to notice that. And then once you learn to relax, they slowly start to drift down. And again, I had no reason to be holding them. They were just there, up near my shoulders, as a reaction to stress and fear and these kinds of things. But as I release them, all kinds of changes happen through this shape in my body. Pressure is released from around my neck. Blood flow increases to my brain. Things change. My jaw is able to soften. I'm able to eat better. You can probably follow that line endlessly through your body just from relaxing your shoulders. And so this quality of releasing, especially along this gallbladder channel, where we love to grip, can be really potent and a way to change your life, how you feel, how you think, by returning to it and returning to it, letting go, letting go. Letting go the sides of the waist, the neck, the shoulders, the glutes, the hips, constantly softening, softening. If you try to force it to open, you tend to make it worse. I'll just reiterate that from earlier. The more we grip, the more we want to not use another fist to open this fist because it's all one system. You're just feeding more fist into the system. Instead, what you want is more softness, more release. Find other ways to release and feed more release into your system. Try not to use tension to force yourself to soften. That doesn't work in the long run. Learn how to let go. If you're not sure how to let go, then that's a pretty big problem. And you have to learn how, and this set is one of those ways. But it's perfectly possible for people to use tension to try and relax during this set as well. To engage with these movements and really start pushing on those and really try to feel their fascia. I'll do 100 more repetitions even though there's a burning in my shoulder. You could easily turn this into a practice that is damaging. Please don't. Get better and better at being softer and softer. So this point here, side of the thigh, another wonderful gallbladder point. Softening them open. You can use your fingertips, sides of your thumbs. You'll see this. Both directions. Melanie's outside staring through the window at me. This is her third pass. I feel bad that she's with the deer. That's why. That's a good reason. The deer are friendly with all of us up here, but Melanie's the only person who's ever been able to actually touch them. That's why when yesterday, I think it was, we were hearing all of the hunters' guns going off. We worry for our friends here. They have names, we know them, they know us. Soft circles, comfortable, comforting, easy, opening. You can let your fingers drift to these liver points while you work the spleen 10 point. Mel is the deer whisperer. Yeah, she is constantly making friends with all kinds of wildlife. She actually got in trouble at the apartment that she was living at before she moved to the monastery because she was inviting so many creatures into her little backyard. That she loves them. The deer actually were afraid of us here at the monastery for years. And during one session with ZhiCheng Shifu, he was teaching a class about, I think, nutrition at the time. And the deer came up, and so he went downstairs and out, and from upstairs, all of the students were watching as he went out there, and he did a traditional deer dance movement from the 5 animal frolics. And the deer didn't move, they just watched. And he moved closer and closer to them and was just doing these deer Qigong movements that we normally practice. And he spent probably 10 minutes just moving right next to them. And they didn't run away until they did, 10 minutes later when he stood up and walked back toward us. But it was at that point that they started being friendly to us, and they were less afraid. And every year since then, they've gotten closer and closer and more comfortable to us. But that was the shift. It was very interesting to watch. So I guess Mel is not the only deer whisperer. They just needed someone to speak in their language. We also have a dog that comes up here once in a while named Stevie. And there's one particular deer who is absolutely in love with Stevie. Actually, on the Instagram page for this monastery, there's a video of this deer chasing Stevie around. This deer followed Stevie for days while he was visiting, just in love with him. Stevie would run away once in a while, and the deer would follow. Very cute. Remember to continue softening. Soften around your joints in particular. The liver and the gallbladder are related to the sinews, to the joints, the ligaments, the tendons, some of the other cartilaginous type tissues, somewhat to the fascia. And it's the same lesson over and over again. This wood energy style tissue responds to softness, friendliness, through being through, free flow. Remember this point here on the top of the foot, liver 3, is particularly good for helping to soothe this quality of the wood energy in your body. Point I'm grasping here on the foot, on the other side, gallbladder 41, which we talked about before. Oh, looks like Melanie's touching the deer again. She's just standing outside in the rain with the deer. Take the time to soften your feet, ease them open. You want a bit of this flexibility through the bones. And this gallbladder 34 point we were working on as well. It's tremendously helpful for the movement of the channel, tension in the rib side, but really any kind of joint tension. It is the meeting point for the sinews in the body. And so by softening that point, by connecting with it and helping it to open, we tend to help the whole body to open. There's another gallbladder point on the outside over here, which is famous for the vision center, treating the eyes. And while I was still in school, a brain scientist who became one of my teachers, she has a lot of really fascinating stories. One of them is about how during her studies, they needled this point on somebody and the vision centers lit up in their brain. And you could watch that happen. And they couldn't figure out what that connection is. Because, of course, the Qi pathways aren't part of their mapping system, but they could clearly see the impact of it. Which is why this neurobiologist became an acupuncturist and teacher at my school. I did a lot of really interesting studies through her. But more and more, modern scientists, modern medicine is catching up. It's really wonderful. Slowly helping your feet become these big, wide things. Spread your toes out. Spread the bones out. Stop wearing shoes that squish and crunch your feet together. Otherwise, you're forced to open them when you're doing standing posture practices and other Qigong methods. And then it gets really uncomfortable because your body's trying to tear itself open through pressure instead of warmth and kindness. And warmth and kindness is just a superior way to move and to heal, in my opinion. I know that some people just like pain. Softening your lower back, softening the sides of the legs, the hips. Your hands travel down the gallbladder channel here. If you'd like, you can also allow pressure along the top of the leg. And there's another way of doing it where your hands are behind the leg, but both times there's movement down the gallbladder channel. And you release it long. You soften it long. And again, for those of you who are just joining us, either because the time change threw you off, or you just somehow found us on the internet, welcome. If you're not sure what we're doing, check down below for an introductory video. We'll teach you this set and how to practice it. Remember to keep your legs soft, easy. You see, doesn't take much pressure to move my legs because they're relaxed. If you're gripping your legs and they don't move when you push on them, learn how to let them go. Even during this movement, don't grip to move. Relax to move. Lengthen your spine, soften your shoulders, crown of the head floats upward, and then you fold over, lengthening your spine all the way down. Allowing this movement to lengthen your legs, lengthen your back. You're not trying to stretch, you're not trying to push and pull. Especially today with the gallbladder, really emphasizing this softening of the waist, side to side. And then as you let go, if you let go and just allow the body to slowly wind down, just slowly stops on its own as the momentum travels through. And the softer you are, the longer it can take sometimes, or it'll just kind of naturally continue wobbling. I will take my headset off for the teeth and tongue movement. Please remember, just as a reminder, that if this is new for you and I'm clicking my teeth, you can also just touch your teeth together and press them together if your teeth feel painful or delicate, or maybe you have some dental work you don't want to smash around. Please be gentle and only do as many of all of these repetitions as allow you to warm and lengthen and release the tissues, not to try to tighten them further. You work so hard to soften, please don't use tension to create these movements. So I'm slowly increasing the number as we end this practice, as we near the 100 days of practice. We're doing more, but only do as many as you can while being soft. Remember that if you would like to lay down, of course you're welcome to. Taking some time to allow your whole body to settle, your awareness to sink inside. You can stay laying if you like, or sitting, for as long as you enjoy. Letting yourself open and be warmly aware of your whole body. I'll have to zip away. We're doing a Daoist music gathering in the monastery here, which is why I can't use the big room they're setting up over there. But please do continue to stay soft and open and relaxed throughout your day. I won't have any time to answer questions, I apologize. So save them up for tomorrow. You will be back tomorrow, right? Thank you, everybody. You are greatly appreciated. Thank you for joining me. Beautiful rainy spring day here. If you are looking for specific points, sometimes it's hard to demonstrate them here on video, but there are some wonderful videos on YouTube. If you search for the points, you can look them up and get a sense of where they are, and people will demonstrate where they are in anatomy charts or pull out their skeletons and that kind of stuff. Makes it easier. And if people are unsure, they can always put a little black dot with a Sharpie or something on the point, and then send me a photograph, and I can tell you whether or not you're close or not. Yeah, and I will try to get the replay up as quickly as I can. It'll have to be after our music session here. But I will get it uploaded and set up as quickly as I can. My life gets pretty full around this time of the day. Enjoy your practice.